I want you to try something for me. Picture yourself in a high-stakes situation, maybe a confrontation at work or a fight with a partner. Your heart starts hammering against your ribs. Your palms get slick. You can feel your jaw clenching tight. The physical sensation is overwhelming. It's heat, it's tension, it's electricity. But then someone hits pause and asks you, hey, what are you feeling right now?
And instead of an answer, you just get static.
Right, total blank. You literally cannot find the label for it. You don't know if it's anger, fear, shame, or if you just drank too much espresso.
You feel the physical wave, but the cognitive part, the word for it, just isn't there.
No, for most people that happens occasionally. But imagine if that was your baseline existence.
That is a reality for a significant chunk of the population. And there's a scientific name for it, alexithymia.
Alexithymia. It sounds ancient, doesn't it?
It is. It has Greek roots, coined by Peter Sifnios in the 70s. It translates literally to a lack of words for emotions.
A lack of words.
But it's important to clarify right off the bat, this isn't about not having feelings. The biology is working fine. The adrenaline is pumping. But the bridge between that bodily sensation and the part of your brain that processes and names it, that bridge is out.
And that's the cliffhanger we're starting with today.
Yeah.
If you have all this energy, all this heat inside you, but no way to say, I'm sad or I'm frustrated, where does that energy go?
Right.
Physics tells us energy doesn't just disappear.
It definitely doesn't. Usually it finds a way out, and often it comes out swinging.
We're looking at a specific piece of research today that tackles this head-on. It's a study published recently, April 2025, in the International Journal of Humanities and Educational Research.
The authors are Taiki and Chekkouh.
And the title really says it all. The relationship between alexithymia and aggressive behavior among adolescents.
Yep.
We're going to dig into how this emotional blindness predicts aggression in teenagers. But I have to be honest, when I first read the abstract, I thought I knew where this was going.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, okay, boys can't talk about feelings, so boys punch walls.
And that is the standard cultural script.
But the data in this study is, well, it's weird. It contradicts that script in some really messy, fascinating ways.
It really does.
It forces us to rethink the connection between gender, words, and violence.
It does. But before we get to the gender paradox, which is the real twist here, we have to understand the mechanism. We need to unpack what alexithymia actually looks like.
Okay.
Because I think people hear emotional blindness and they picture a sociopath, someone cold and calculating.
Like a robot.
Precisely, and that's wrong. It's not a lack of care, it's a processing error. The study used the TAS-20, the Toronto Alexithymia Scale, which is the gold standard for measuring this. And it breaks the condition down into 3 specific gears that are grinding.
Okay, let's run through them. The first one is DIF. Difficulty identifying feelings.
This is the core confusion. It's the inability to distinguish between an emotion and a bodily sensation.
Sure.
Let's say you have a knot in your stomach. I might say, I'm anxious about this recording. Someone with high DI might just think, my stomach hurts, or I must be hungry.
Wow.
They feel the distress, but they misinterpret the signal.
That sounds incredibly isolating. You're in pain, but you don't know why.
It creates a lot of hypochondria, actually. Then you have the second component, DDF.
Difficulty describing feelings.
To others, yes. Even if you have a vague sense that you're upset, you can't articulate it. You can't say, I felt rejected when you didn't invite me. You just shut down.
And then the third one, which I found the hardest to wrap my head around, EOT, externally oriented thinking.
This is the most subtle one, but maybe the most important. It refers to a cognitive style where the person focuses almost entirely on concrete external details. They don't daydream much. They don't introspect.
Give me an example of that. What does that sound like in a conversation?
Okay. Imagine I ask you, how did you feel about your wedding day? Most people would talk about the joy, the nerves, the love.
Right.
Someone with high EOT might just list the timeline. We woke up at 7. The car arrived at 8. The ceremony lasted 20 minutes. The food was chicken.
They're reporting the news of their own life, but they aren't living the story.
That's a great way to put it. They are anchored in the concrete because the abstract internal world is inaccessible.
So the study focuses on adolescents, kids between 15 and 18. Why focus there? Is it just because teenagers are moody?
It's a bit more biological than that. Adolescence is a massive construction zone for the brain. You have the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, the part that regulates impulses, still coming online. But the emotional centers, the amygdala, are fully fired up.
All gas, no brakes.
Exactly. This is the critical window where emotional maturity is supposed to develop. If you have deficits in identifying emotions during this window, you are incredibly vulnerable.
And it's not a small problem.
No, the prevalence isn't insignificant. Studies show anywhere from about 7% to almost 16% of adolescents struggle with this.
So we have a demographic that is already prone to high-intensity emotion. And now we're looking at the ones who lack the software to decode those emotions.
Which brings us to Mohammedia, Morocco, where Taiki and Chekkouh conducted this research. They took 120 adolescents, split 50-50 male and female, and gave them the TAS-20 for alexithymia, and then the Bus-Perry Aggression Questionnaire, or BPAQ.
I want to pause on the aggression test, the BPAQ, because aggression can mean a lot of things.
It can.
Are we talking about thoughts or actually hitting people?
That's a crucial distinction. The BPAQ measures 4 dimensions. Physical aggression, so hitting, fighting, verbal aggression, like yelling, arguing.
So,
Anger, which is the physiological arousal,
Yeah.
and hostility feelings of ill will or injustice. It gives a composite score.
okay, so they measure the emotional blindness and they measure the aggression. What's the link?
The link is strong. They found a statistically significant positive correlation. The R value was 0.367.
Which, in social science terms, is pretty solid.
Very solid. It means as alexithymia goes up, aggression goes up. They found they could actually predict aggressive behavior based on how much difficulty the teen had identifying their feelings.
But why? I mean, I get that it's frustrating not to know what you're feeling, but why does that translate specifically to violence? Why not just withdrawal or sadness?
It comes back to regulation. Think about the mechanics of the brain. When you can name an emotion, when you can say, I am angry, you engage the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
That labeling process dampens the response of the amygdala. It's like putting a brake on the car. You gain emotional insight.
So the act of naming it is the act of controlling it.
Yes, if you lack that cognitive resource, the emotion stays as raw psychological distress. It just builds up pressure. And as some other researchers, Falati and colleagues, noted in a related study, when you can't cool down the feeling through understanding, aggression becomes a coping mechanism.
A discharge.
It is.
You can't use words, so you use actions. It's a way to get the feeling out of your body.
It's a functional, albeit destructive way to regulate the nervous system.
Okay, so the mechanism makes sense. Emotional blindness leads to aggression. Now, let's get to the gender aspect, because this is where I got confused looking at the data.
Walk me through your confusion.
Well, we have this stereotype that boys are the aggressive ones.
Right.
And looking at the alexithymia scores in this study, the boys did score significantly higher. They had more trouble describing feelings and much higher rates of that externally oriented thinking.
That aligns with previous research. A researcher named Levant calls this normative male alexithymia.
Normative male alexithymia.
Yeah. The idea is that boys are often socialized into action empathy, so anticipating what someone will do rather than emotional empathy. They are taught to suppress the vocabulary of vulnerability.
Right. So follow my logic here.
Okay.
If alexithymia causes aggression, and boys have way more alexithymia, then boys should be way more aggressive than girls.
That would be the logical equation.
But that's not what happened.
No. Despite the boys having much higher alexithymia scores, the study found no statistically significant difference in the level of aggressive behavior between the genders.
None.
None. The girls were just as aggressive as the boys.
How does that work? Is the theory broken?
No, the theory holds, but it's more complex. Remember, the BPAQ measures different types of aggression.
Ah.
So while boys might skew higher on physical aggression, girls often score just as high, or even higher, on verbal aggression and hostility. The output of aggression is there for both, even if the style is different.
So the study busts the myth that stoic men are the angry ones and women are the peaceful ones.
Completely. The authors cite other researchers, White and Burbank, noting that women act aggressively and are often victims of other women's aggression in something like 91% of societies studied.
But wait, if the girls have lower alexithymia, if they are better at naming their feelings, why are they still just as aggressive? Shouldn't their emotional words be saving them from the aggression?
That's the million-dollar question. It suggests that while alexithymia is a major pathway to aggression for boys, there might be other stressors driving the girls. Or it suggests that the threshold for aggression is lower than we think. Even with some emotional vocabulary, the sheer intensity of adolescent emotion can still overwhelm the system.
So alexithymia predicts aggression, But having a good vocabulary isn't a magical shield if the stress is high enough.
Exactly. And that leads us to the broader context, because we aren't just talking about teenagers in Morocco. When you zoom out, you see this pattern of emotional blindness appearing in some really extreme situations.
Yeah, the outline mentioned a study about the Wenchuan earthquake in China.
Hmm.
That feels like a hard turn from high school hallways.
It seems like a jump, but it's actually the same mechanism under extreme load.
Hmm.
This was the Tang study from 2020. They looked at survivors of that massive earthquake.
And what did they find?
They found that alexithymia acted as a mediator. So you have the traumatic event, the earthquake,
Okay.
and you have the outcome, PTSD or depression. But the thing that connects them, it's the alexithymia. The trauma shuts down the ability to process feelings, and that shutdown is what leads to the disorder.
It's like the brain gets overloaded and blows a fuse. The language center goes dark.
And here is where the gender stats flipped. In the earthquake study, the females had higher rates of alexithymia than the males.
That's interesting. So it's not just boys are born this way. The context, the trauma, can strip any one of their words.
Right. It suggests the gender gap isn't fixed biology, it's situational. An earthquake is different from the daily social pressure of a teenage boy, but the result, silence and distress, is the same.
Then we have the other end of the spectrum. We talked about victims, now let's talk about perpetrators. There was a study from Australia about violent offenders.
The Strickland study, this one's really heavy. They looked at men in prison, specifically those involved in general violence and intimate partner violence.
Domestic abusers.
Yes. And they found these men had significantly higher alexithymia levels than the general community. Specifically, they struggled with identifying and describing.
This connects back to what we said earlier about the bridge being out.
Yeah.
If you're in a relationship and you feel insecure or jealous or ashamed,
Yeah.
and you cannot say, honey, I'm feeling insecure right now, that emotion doesn't vanish.
Right.
It bypasses the language center and goes straight to the fist. It reinforces the idea that violence is often a result of a verbal failure, a cognitive failure.
It's terrifying, but it also humanizes the mechanics of it. It doesn't excuse it, obviously.
Not at all.
But it explains why anger management might not work if you aren't teaching emotional identification.
You can't manage anger if you don't know it's anger until after you've thrown a chair.
There is one more layer to this regarding outgroups. This was the Conrath study. And I have to ask, is this really alexithymia? Or is this just prejudice?
It's a bit of both.
Hmm.
The study found that people with high alexithymia showed increased aggression specifically toward people different from them. Racial outgroups, political outgroups.
Whoa. Think about what empathy is. To have empathy, I have to simulate your feelings in my own brain. I have to imagine what it's like to be you.
Okay.
If I can't even access my own feelings, if my own internal dashboard is dark, how on earth am I going to simulate yours?
I can't feel me, so I definitely can't feel you.
And when we can't understand someone, we fear them. And when we fear them, we get hostile. So yes, it's prejudice, but it's prejudice fueled by an inability to emotionally connect.
That has huge implications for where we are right now as a society. We're all shouting at each other, and maybe part of it is that we literally lack the internal software to bridge the gap.
The bridge is out at both ends.
So we've painted a pretty bleak picture here. We've got teens, trauma survivors, prisoners, and polarized societies all suffering from this lack of words. What is the fix?
Right, the so what?
This study mentions emotional socialization, but that sounds like jargon. What does that actually mean for a parent listening to this?
It means we have to change how we talk to kids from day one. Usually when a kid cries, our instinct is to say, shh, it's okay, stop crying. We try to make the behavior stop.
They want the noise to end.
Right. Emotional socialization means ignoring the noise and addressing the signal. It means saying, I see your face is red and your fists are balled up. You look very frustrated that the tower fell down.
You're narrating their experience for them.
You are giving them the data labels. You are building that library of words in their brain so that 10 years later, when they are 16 and their girlfriend breaks up with them, they don't have to punch a wall.
They can say, I am devastated.
Precisely.
And what about for the teens who are already past the toddler stage? The 16-year-olds in the Moroccan study who are already aggressive. Is it too late?
The neuroplasticity of the adolescent brain says no, it's not too late. But the intervention has to change. The study argues that schools need to stop treating aggression solely as bad behavior that needs punishment.
So less detention, more therapy.
More training. Teachers need to be able to spot aggression as a symptom of wordlessness. We need programs that actually teach emotional competencies.
It's like remedial reading, but for feelings.
And for rehabilitation, like with the violent offenders, Strickland argues you have to assess for alexithymia. If you just treat the violence without treating the emotional blindness, you're trying to fix a software bug by smashing the monitor.
That's a powerful image.
It's the only way to break the cycle.
We've covered a lot of ground. We've learned that lacking words for feelings isn't just a quirky personality trait, it's a predictor of violence. We learned that the gender divide is much messier than we thought. Boys might struggle with the words, but girls are just as capable of the aggression.
And we learned that language is the ultimate regulator.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought from the source material that has been rattling around in my head. It's from Tremblay, captured in a 2000 study.
The toddler paradox.
Yes. We spend all this time worrying about violent teens and violent video games. But Tremblay points out that if you look at the data, physical aggression actually decreases with age from childhood onwards.
That's true. The most physically aggressive human beings on Earth, statistically, are 2-year-olds. They bite, they kick, they scream, they hit.
Because they have 0 words. They are pure alexithymia by default.
We start out as wild things.
Exactly. So the real mystery isn't how do teens learn to be aggressive, it's how do toddlers learn not to be.
They learn the words. They replace the bite with the sentence.
And maybe that's the takeaway. Peace isn't a natural state. Peace is a vocabulary lesson. And if we stop learning the words, we go right back to biting.
That is a profound place to leave it.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Go learn a new word for how you feel today. We'll catch you next time.